Welcome to Mental Junk Food. This is CB Smallwood, and you're at the place where we talk about all things comics, sci-fi, horror, pop culture, fantasy, and everything in between. And today, we're going to be talking about DC Comics selling 4 exclusive titles to the retailer Walmart, and what that means for the comic book industry, or potentially means, I should say. And also, we're going to talk about spinner racks. Diamond Distributor is bringing back the spinner racks. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. Now, first of all, I want to say up front that I am in favor of both the spinner racks and the Walmart and DC Comics deal. Now, starting with the Walmart and DC Comics deal, basically, the comic books that's going to be exclusive to Walmart is Superman, Justice League of America, Batman, and Teen Titans. Now, these 4 books are priced to sell at $4.99, which is a bargain considering that they are 100-page extravaganzas, and they are exclusives. You can't get them anywhere else. And on top of that, they have top-tier talent working on the books, such as Brian Michael Bendis. Now, getting comic books out there to people who probably wouldn't normally buy comic books sounds like a good thing, right? Well, there's a lot of comic book store owners that are upset about this. They're pulling their hair right out of their head because, not to quote anybody, and not necessarily put words in anyone's mouth, but basically the comic book store owners, their point of view is like, listen, we sell comic books exclusively. That's pretty much our bread and butter. That's what we do. We're suffering. Sales are low all over the place. Stores are closing left and right. And then you go and cut our legs out from under us, DC, by selling this exclusive to Walmart instead of to us. Why can't you sell some other stuff that you printed long ago to Walmart and let us have the exclusive? And that is my understanding of how the comic book shop owners are kind of looking at this deal. And they're right to an extent. There is validity to those points. But my argument is this, okay? Now, first of all, looking at Walmart's side of things, Walmart wants to make a profit, and there's nothing wrong with that. You got to make money as a company so that way that you can pay your employees, that you can pay any overhead that you have, cost of electricity and water and maintenance, the cost of advertising, the cost of growing and expanding, and the cost of this, and this. There's so many different things that goes into running a business, so there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not going to get into that whole big hoopla. So they need to make sure that whatever inventory that they got, that they get it sold and they get it out of there so that way they can put more in. Just a constant process of doing that. And they got to make sure that these comic books sell. And to do that, by making them exclusives, that helps a lot. By having top tier DC comic book talent work on these books, that helps even more. And the fact that they are 100-page extravaganzas, that's the icing on the cake. So on Walmart's perspective, I agree 100%. That's the way that they had to do it. There's no other way I think they could have done it, because Walmart wants to make sure by making these things so exclusive and so sought after that they're going to get that hardcore crowd of comic book collectors and comic book fans to go to Walmart to buy these books. And that makes sense because they don't want these comic books just sitting on the shelves and not really doing anything. Now, some of you may argue, CB, so you said you was in favor of this, but only hardcore comic book fans are going to be buying them from Walmart, and they're not going to have access to them in the comic book shops where they can pre-order and all this other stuff. Isn't that kind of a bad thing? No, not necessarily, and let me tell you why. Now, first of all, on the East Coast of the United States and the West Coast of the United States, you got a lot of comic book fans here and there, a lot of stores in the big cities, not just on the coastal areas, but also throughout the country. But there's also a lot of rural areas and sparsely populated areas throughout the United States. In fact, most of the United States doesn't even have a lot of people on it, period. As crazy as that sounds, it's mostly just empty, wide range, open spaces. Anything from desert plains to mountains and trees and streams, you name it. So with that in mind, there's a lot of people in rural areas and sparsely populated areas in the middle section of America that might not necessarily have access to a comic book store or even be aware that they have these things, because the idea is you want to appeal to new collectors, or basically broaden your fan base and get more people in, get new customers. There's like plenty of advertising in terms of the movies with Thor, Captain America, the Avengers, Iron Man, you name it. So they make billions and billions of dollars. But the problem is, if people start looking for that type of product in the stores, the only thing they're going to find for the most part, is if they go in Walmart, Target, or Kmart, whatever Kmarts are left, all they're going to find is T-shirts, mugs, I don't know, just little oddball keychain items, stuff like that. It's got Marvel stuff on it or DC stuff on it, backpacks, everything but comic books, oddly enough. So I think this is a step in the right direction. We have to broaden the reach of how far comic books can go. We got to get them out of the comic book stores, or the comic book industry just isn't going to make it. It's just not going to survive. I mean, comic books will still continue on, but like how they've been, that's not how it's going to continue to be. I promise you that. There's already a lot of bad signs in the air that things are just going to get worse. We got to have to start turning it around. And to put it in perspective for you, what this Walmart deal could potentially mean is basically, picture in some of these places where you're not going to have a lot of copies that's going to sell out. Now, granted, on the West Coast and East Coast, you're going to see a lot of books sell out, and in the major cities. But everywhere else where you're not going to have that many collectors and scalpers or whatever, like scrambling up copies of these books, you're going to have a lot of copies just sitting around not really doing anything. You're going to have like maybe one or two people come in and buy them, and that'd be about it. But what's going to end up happening for those books that's going to sit there, you're going to have some mom with her, I don't know, 6, 7, 8-year-old son, or 6, 7, or 8-year-old daughter, basically go in there and like they're going to see Superman. It's like, hey, that's Superman, and then they look at the comic book and it looks really cool looking, and they look at the interiors like, can I get this, Mom? Like, yeah, sure. It's like $5, but it's 100 pages. Why not? They take it home, they look at it, they look at the pictures, they read the words, and hopefully it's well written, and they enjoy it. And then maybe a month goes by, maybe 2, and for whatever reason, they're back in Walmart. I'm not saying that Walmart visits are once a month, but whatever. But some time passes by, they go back in Walmart, and basically the second or third issue is out of that book of Superman, and then they buy it because of the love that they had of that first one. And that is how fandom starts. That's how fandom is created. That's how I became a fan. It's through buying comic books in gas stations and grocery stores and drug stores, mom and pop stores, yada yada yada. There was no comic book shops near me within a gazillion mile radius. That's just how it was. That's how it was for a lot of my friends. It's where we got half of our collections of comic books was by convenience stores and the like. So we got to get comic books back in the hands of kids. We got to get comic books back in the hands of the casual shoppers if you want sales to start going up. Of course, there's other things that needs to change too, but this is something that also has to be done. So I think this is a step in the right direction, and I applaud DC for doing this. This is the right train of thought, but it's only a step in the right direction. There's a lot more that needs to be done, in my opinion. Now let's talk about the spinner racks. Diamond Distributors finally had a great idea after like decades of bad ideas, and their great idea is to bring back the spinner racks. And the irony of it is they're the ones that took them away. About 2 decades ago, give or take, they come up with this brilliant idea, sarcasm, this brilliant idea of like, hey, how about we get rid of all the spinner racks, take all the comic books out of these grocery stores and gas stations and drug stores and mom and pop places and all this other stuff, and let's just sell them exclusively to comic book stores, so that way we can make sure we maximize profit and and we put all the burden on the comic book stores and yada yada yada. Worked out great for Diamond Distributors in the short run, but in the long run it has hurt the comic book industry, because what's ended up happening because of that poor decision making, the customer base has shrunk. Because you have to keep in mind the people that buy comic books were born in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, I guess 90s. But I got a feeling in my heart that there's not really that many millennials and people beyond that age group that are buying comics. Now, you can go to comic book conventions in major cities and stuff like that, and you can see millennials buying comics. Sure, I grant you that. But what I'm saying is, in the middle of America, or most of America, the casual buyers and stuff like that, you're not seeing a large influx of new customers. I don't believe you're seeing that. And the sales reflect that. The people that's pretty much buying comic books today, by and large, are the people from the 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s that started collecting during those decades. And the thing is, and not to get morbid, we're only mortal. Okay, none of us are Highlander. None of us go and kill other immortals so that we can expand our lifespan. The thing is, at one point, we had to shed our mortal coil. And that means that the customer base for every single comic book company and publisher out there is shrinking. So you got to get new blood. You got to get new people to be buying comic books. So we got to appeal to the kids, the teenagers, and the adults and get them to buy books. Now, granted, in the past 10 years, there's been attempts to appeal to people, to bring people in, but the responsibility has always been dropped on the comic book shop owners. The same people that are struggling to make ends meet, the same people who can't afford to advertise on radio, on newspaper, and on television, let people know that they even have a comic book shop in town somewhere and what they have and what they offer. A lot of comic book shops can't afford to do that because they're on a very, very tight budget as it is. And it's on these same comic book shops that, like people like Diamond Distributors, dump the responsibility of hey, try to get new readers in. That's going to be your thing. There's been things such as Free Comic Book Day, that comic book publishers did to try to see if they can bring readers in and stuff like that. But then again, it all goes back to putting that responsibility, I feel, on the shoulders of the comic book shop owners, and there's only so much that they can do. And the truth is, Diamond Distributors and comic book publishers need to step up and do more on their end to make sure that the health and vitality of the comic book industry gets improves and gets better and gets stronger. Diamond Distributor took out the spinner racks, and now they want to bring them back. They want to bring back the spinner racks. And their big plan on how to do it is something like this, okay? Sometime in March of 2018, unless I'm mistaken, they came up with this idea to introduce the new spinner rack. It's got 44 pockets on it, and it sells for about $300. It's a $300 spinner rack with free delivery, one would hope. And I think sometime toward the end of March, they actually sold out of the majority of them. They may still have a few in stock, and they're supposed to be reordering a lot more, so that campaign was a successful one. But I think it was mainly nostalgia that boosted the sales more than anything. But anyway, let me get more into the point of what I'm trying to say. Now, one of the big ideas that Diamond Distributors had with reintroducing the pop-up spinner rack was basically that they're wanting to sell them to comic book retailers, which is comic book shops. And the comic book shops are to find complementary businesses in their area. And by offering incentives to retailers who purchase a spinner rack for placement in other businesses. Okay, so that sounds a little convoluted, but basically what I'm trying to say is this. Their big idea is hey, if you buy a spinner rack from us, a mom and pop comic book store, we want you to approach some gas station, some convenience store, drugstore, hospital, gift shop, what have you, and basically ask them if they'd be interested in putting a spinner rack in there. And then you give them that spinner rack that you paid for, and then you work out some deal between them, however you want to work it out. And you are responsible, comic book shop owner, for stocking and restocking and doing all the business stuff between you and that business. It's funny. It's a good idea overall, but I still feel like Diamond Distributors is dumping the responsibility of every single little detail on the comic book shop owners. Now, I understand that the comic book shop owners are going to know where things are probably going to sell best in their community. But the thing is, you can't just rely on comic book shop owners to do every single little thing, because they're struggling as it is. Not a lot of people. I say a lot of the comic book shop owners just bought the spinner racks so that they could have spinner racks in their store. It's just cool. It's nostalgic. It's convenient. If you work it up a certain way. So I'm curious of how many of the comic book stores actually took Diamond Distributors up on this deal at the heart of the deal, where they're just going to approach other businesses and set up spinner racks in these gas stations and mom and pop stores and what have you, and work something out between themselves. I kind of feel like it probably wouldn't be that many, but I could be wrong on that. So overall, between the Walmart deal in DC Comics and the reintroduction of spinner racks, I think that is a great thing or a step in the right direction. However, I don't think it's the be-all and end-all solution to fixing all the problems that are in comics. There's still a lot more that needs to be done. Marvel and DC Comics, when they make movies, they need to start advertising that they make comics in the movies. Somewhere near in the beginning of the movies and advertisements, maybe they can even, with all those billions and billions of dollars that they make, they can pay for ads that play before the movies start, okay? The local ads. And put a spot in the local ads in the movie theaters saying, hey, you can go to www.something comic book store locator and find a comic book shop near you. These are the comic books that we sell, you know. Come check them out. Brand new first issues, because we know that they reboot them every couple months or so. So, you know, Marvel and DC, I feel like if they're sincere about wanting their publishing in to survive, they would create more synergy between the movies, the cartoons, the action figures, and the comics, okay? So that way that they're one and the same. Of course, there will be little deviations between each medium, but overall, there's a core element that makes them all the same, so that way no one gets lost when they purchase one or the other. So Marvel and DC, they need to start putting advertisements somewhere in those movies at the main beginning before the movies even play or after the credits end to let people know that, hey, they still make comics. And I know even in this day and age that to some of you that may sound stupid, even in the age of the internet and stuff like that, but people that are just casual buyers or whatever, casual shoppers, there's a lot of people in this newer generations that just think comic books are not published anymore because they never see them. The only place that you can see them is in comic book shops. And a lot of comic book shops are hidden, you know? I mean, not every comic book shop can have really ideal location. Certain locations cost a lot more money than others. And so, you know, a lot of comic book shops, they have to set up wherever they can set up. And usually it's in the middle of nowhere, whether it's in a big city or if it's in the countryside. That's just how it ends up, you know, because you can only afford to operate where you can operate, and they can only get people to come to their doors through word of mouth and what little advertisement that they can manage to do on Facebook. So Marvel and DC need to step up and do that stuff. That's what I recommend. Diamond Distributors needs to step up and stop dropping off so much responsibility on the shoulders of the comic book shop owners to figure things out. And they need to start distributing comics back into gas stations, into mom and pop stores, convenience stores, grocery stores, and what have you, so that kids who've never bought a comic book before can walk in there and look at a Superman comic or look at a Captain America comic and say, ooh, this looks cool, take it home and buy it, and hopefully go and buy another because they're a fan of it. That's how you create a fandom. You know, that's how you create a customer base. There's so much more to say. Believe me, I've said it in prior takes to this video. And I know a lot of you are saying that, you know, comic book professionals and editorial staff and what have you, they need to be more professional, and that we need to get rid of people that are emotionally unstable in comics that have been introduced within the past 10 years. I know a lot of you are saying that that we need more common sense policies in comics, that diversity is awesome and cool, but it's the way that it is implemented that has been the problem. There are so many different ways to look at stuff. Well, there's quite a bit more to say, but so I'm just going to leave it on that note. Please let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think? Do you think that the reintroduction of comic spinner racks is a great thing? Do you think the Walmart and DC deal is a good idea? Do you think these are the steps in the right direction, or do you think the opposite? Do you think these are just kind of regressive and hurt comic book shops in the long term? What do you think needs to be done to save the comic book industry, or is it beyond help at this point? So let me know in the comment section down below. I love reading your comments, as well as everyone else that kind of like voyeurs and likes to read comments, I should say. Please hit that like button if you enjoyed this video or found it informative. And I'm trying my best to get to 1,000 subscribers, so I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel. It would help me out a great deal. So I appreciate you taking the time to view this video. This is CB Smallwood, and I will see you in the next video.